I'm in Morocco, in North Africa, flying into the Sahara Desert from the Atlas Mountains. It's enormous, a quarter of the African continent and sprawling across 11 countries. It's a harsh, arid wilderness that can cook you and kill you if you don't know what you're doing. There's no way out of here. Just staying alive is your only hope.
If you get lost out here, the two most likely things to kill you are dehydration and heat stroke, and both of those can come on in a matter of hours.
The chopper's hovering at 8,000 feet, and it's time to go. I've got a few basic survival tools, and my camera crew are coming with me.
This must be the hottest desert I have ever been in. You know, summertime in Sahara, it's over 130 degrees heat. You know, just touching that sand, you can almost not hold your hand down longer than a few seconds.
The only escape from here is the Atlas Mountains, hundreds of miles away. But in this furnace of a desert, you'd never get that far. You've just got to stay alive until you're found. You need to keep a cool head, so I'm going to make an Arab-style headdress out of my t-shirt. In this heat, your brain would sizzle and your body would shut down. Before you knew it, you'd be a snack for the vultures.
And the last thing I can do, just to help keep me cool, is just to then pee on this t-shirt. And it's not very nice, but it will help keep me cool. And this is something I've actually done before in the desert. But really anything you can do in this sort of heat to keep your head cool is going to prolong how long you can survive out here.
If you wrap this around your head, it'll buy you a few extra hours in heat that feels like you're being slow roasted. And believe me, it works. I've heard an extraordinary story of a mother who saved her kids' lives in the desert by covering their heads with clothing soaked in pee.
Zip up, ready, go.
To survive out here, you need food, but above all, water. That's not easy in this barren wilderness which gets just 3 inches of rain a year. Only the hardiest creatures can live here, and you've got to grab what you can.
Check out this little guy. Oh, I want to watch out for him. This is a little camel spider, and these are, try and get him to be still, there you go. These are like a cross between a scorpion and a spider, and they can grow actually up to about 6 inches long, but they're pretty aggressive brutes, and soldiers in the desert have known to be quite afraid of these. Look, you see what he's chasing.
It looks like he's chasing me, but it's my shadow he's after. Even he wants to escape the burning sun.
And these guys can move pretty fast, up to about like 10 miles an hour, and that's faster than I can walk uphill in the sand dune. He's edible, and he doesn't look very nice, but the dangerous bit of him, I don't know if you can see it, but let's hold him down there, are his pincers. That can give a nasty nip. Look, he's trying to even bite this. But the rest of him, if I get rid of that, is edible. Come here. And that was the nasty bit, his front legs and the pincers. And then all of this is edible. And actually, God, look at that. That's just soft goo. And God knows what's inside that. I'm not particularly looking forward to eating this one. But it's going to be good. Bit of protein and energy. Oh. Like explosion of pus in my mouth.
Pretty gross, but it'll keep you going. And because he's just a morsel, he's more of a lifesaver than you might think. Eat little and often, and you'll be fine. Eat too much, and your digestion burns up water, making you even more vulnerable to dehydration. It can come on in just hours, and it's a killer.
I've only got about a litre of water in this bottle, but really in this heat I need to be drinking a minimum of a litre of water every hour. But one way I can make this water last longer is just to keep it in my mouth, and therefore keep my mouth and my throat moist.
It's a simple survival trick, but one that will buy you a few extra hours, which is crucial if you're going to stay alive out here. You can last for up to 3 weeks without food, but without water in the desert, you'd be lucky to live beyond 24 hours. It's vital to find a source of fresh water. You have to get as high as you can to spot any clues of where you might find some.
It's just horrible to climb. It's like trying to climb a mountain of treacle. You know, you take one step forward and then you slide back too. See, that's on the horizon. It looks like some treetops. So that's where I'm gonna go.
You need to be quick before the wind picks up. In the blink of an eye, this harsh heat can turn into a vicious, blinding sandstorm.
There are two ways down this. There's a slow, plodding way that's gonna take forever, or there's a fast way. When it's this windy up here, I just want to be down.
Lean back and take big strides.
Well, what took about 45 minutes to climb up, down about 5 seconds. Good, on my way.
The Saharan winds sculpt the sand dunes into their distinctive shapes, and you can use them to work out which direction to head in.
And what happens is that the prevailing wind comes from the northeast, from the Mediterranean, and it blows the windward side of all of these dunes into these long, shallow slopes. And then on the leeward side, it's shorter, sharper, steeper. So I can tell northeast is over there, which means northwest is that way.
That's the direction you travel towards the Atlas Mountains. But don't think you're going to be able to walk that far. You need to find ways of just staying alive and hope that someone rescues you.
I'm in quite a precarious position up here.
I'm in the Sahara Desert in North Africa. Your chances of walking out of here are slim. The battle is just to stay alive. And if you reach one of these palm trees, it could be a lifesaver. Food, water, and above all, shelter.
One of your biggest enemies in the desert can be heat stroke, and it can come on so fast, literally like just over an hour. And I've seen soldiers get it before and they're just completely incapacitated. But the first signs of it are just having a headache and just being really fatigued. And if you don't find yourself a shady spot soon, that's going to get worse. You're going to stop sweating as your body tries to conserve fluids, and then you're going to get dizzy, and if you don't get treatment, you can die. And already we've had one of our crew get heat stroke. He's had to be evacuated. And really this desert is proving in many ways one of my toughest assignments yet.
In this sort of heat, you can lose nearly a litre of water an hour, and you wouldn't even notice. If you don't drink, you won't have a hope. You need water whenever and wherever you can get it.
I kind of thought from a distance that maybe there'd be an oasis or something here. but there's not. But the Moroccans do say about these date palms that they have their heads in fire and their feet often in water. So I just don't know whether it might be worth trying to dig down a bit here. The only risk of doing this is you end up just sweating more and losing more valuable fluids. Look, it's just all bone dry down here.
But never give up.
Bone dry.
Just a drop of water is better than nothing, and an old army technique I used might do the trick. A dew trap. Scrape a hole about 1.5 feet deep and line it with a few palm leaves.
And then the next thing I do is put rocks in on top of these. And it's these that are going to actually collect the moisture. And the way it works is as these rocks cool down overnight and then the sun comes up, you get that contrast between heat outside and the cool rocks, and that causes condensation.
To finish the trap, add more leaves on top. What little water there is in the parched air won't evaporate, and overnight the stones should collect a few precious drops.
Yeah, that should do.
Rocks are dangerous though. They're great hiding places for deadly scorpions.
Yeah, here's one to show you. Wow, look, this is actually a fat tail scorpion, and these are one of the most poisonous scorpions in the world. Look at this, watch, if I put that there, it's trying to strike at it. And actually this has enough venom to kill a man.
If I was stung by one of these scorpions and I didn't get any help, I could be dead within 6 hours. The venom attacks your nervous system, which means convulsions and ultimately heart failure. At least 100 people die every year in Morocco from scorpion stings.
And you can actually eat these, even though they're super deadly, you can eat them. But the first bit I want to get rid of is his stinger. And look, him strike. Hold him down, take his head off, and then you can eat this bit. I spotted some dates at the top of this palm tree, right at the top, and those would be really good energy if I can just get to them. Hey, let me grab that camera off you.
If you've gone hours without fluids, you've got to get something to replace them fast. There are dates at the top of this palm tree. We should do the trick.
Hopefully I'll get myself some sapper.
It's about 30 foot tall, but I reckon I can shin up it. But watch out for loose bark. It can cut you to ribbons.
Needs to be, look, this is the stuff. You've got to keep your feet pressed into it like that and not put all your weight on one of them. It's hard work on the arms, this. Okay, I'm just going to cut these down. I'm in quite a precarious position up here. Just my arms have been rubbed raw by this bark. But I found a good number of these dates, and they don't look very ripe. But actually, dates are the best desert food. Massive sugar, lots of energy, vitamin C, but also lots of minerals to replace the salts that I'm losing. Sweating here. So let's try it. Oh, yeah, really bitter. But I want to eat as many of these as I can. Ow. Cut myself.
And for once the desert's on your side. The heat can help to heal any wounds.
If you're going to make camp here, the first thing you need to do is find yourself something to insulate yourself. Ow.
The heat's attacked you all day, but just when you could do with it at night, the desert has other plans. A mattress of woven palm fronds should help you survive.
Sand is a notoriously bad insulator. It'll take a lot of your heat away. So that will just keep you off the sand.
Temperatures can plummet to freezing at night, so if you were to sleep out, you need a fire. There's no shortage of dry wood, and it's worth trying a friction firelight.
And all you need to do is break it like here. And that's going to be my base. And then out of this, just make like a spindle.
Smooth off the spindle, nick a hole at the base, and start spinning the stick to try and get an ember.
And the key with this is not rushing the early stages of it. Just take your time, and you want to do at least a minute, maybe in 2 minutes, of just steadily building up the heat at the bottom of the spindle.
And then you need to really go for it to get it going.
Let's see what we've got here. Ah, you dog! Ah, it's gone out. All that effort, and this time it hasn't worked. And you know, in many ways, I need to conserve my energy. It's no good just sitting here, pouring the sweat, going through that again. This time, I was going to try the flint and hope that makes it work. And if you were to spend a night out here, this would be really a great camp. And you got a bit of bedding, sun setting, and you got nature's TV.
But never forget, the forbidding Sahara is also home to some of the world's deadliest creatures.
Coming very gently. We've got a cobra.
I'm in the Sahara Desert in North Africa, showing how to stay alive in the hottest place on Earth. If you keep calm and use survival techniques, you can make it through this relentless heat and maximize your chances of being rescued.
One of the best ways of avoiding the real killer heat of the day is to get up early and get moving before the sun gets too strong. You know, but out here, even by like 9 AM, it can be over 120 degrees. And also, when you're getting dressed, check all your clothes and also your boots for scorpions. When the sun comes up, they seek like shady, hidden away dark places. They're nocturnal, and a pair of shoes is ideal for them.
Water's always your main priority, so I need to check my dew trap to see if I've got any. Just a drop will help.
And what I'm hoping here is that because this stuff has heated up, that the rocks underneath should have stayed cool, and then that contrast should give a little bit of condensation. And let you see, you know, I mean, it's not much, but it's better than nothing.
If you've had a campfire, use the charcoal to protect your eyes from the sun. It reduces the glare and stops your corneas from frying.
And this is why you'll often see, like sportsmen, with these streaks of black across their nose.
Cover as much as you can, especially your head. The last thing you need is heat stroke.
Come on. Almost there.
The Sahara has to be the emptiest larder in the world, but resist the temptation to satisfy your hunger with just anything, like the desert gourd.
And look, they look like really delicious watermelon, but they're not. And if I just cut this open, if you try to eat this, it'd be really bitter and it would make you sick, so it's actually going to dehydrate you further. But what they do have is good antiseptic and anti-inflammatory properties. So if you got, like, you know, bitten by a snake, stung by a scorpion, you could put this on it and it would help. And actually the local nomads out here, they'll use this, wipe their backside with it, and it'll help their hemorrhoids. But I don't need that.
Where some plants might make you sick, you've got to know where to look to find something safe to eat.
between us, the crew have managed to catch one of these little sandfishes, and these are like little lizards. But what's amazing about this guy is that he uses his arms and his legs to actually like swim under the sand. And if I let him go, if I'm in deep sand, he will just shoot away straight into the sand and like burrow like a meter deep. And that's his way of getting away from predators. But let's let him go here and to see what he does. This sand is hopefully not too deep, so he should probably head for the deeper sand, but they're fast. And look, you see him already burrowing his way in here. See that? Look at it, amazing. Oh, there he is. Got him again. That's how fast this little fella is. Just like disappears into the sand. But actually, he's also good food.
I'll just get rid of the head. Personally, I find them overrated, but the rest of the body looks delicious.
It's like a kind of big mix of blood, guts and scales.
Better than nothing. A pick-me-up in the baking hell of the desert. The sun is now at its highest and hottest, and it's a heartless enemy.
Really, the heat out here is just relentless, and we've just had to evacuate another of the crew with heat stroke, and it kind of feels like they're dropping like flies. But really, it's like trying to live and survive all day and night inside a very hot oven.
Finding shade for me and the crew is critical, but the desert is always full of deadly surprises.
Got a cobra. Okay, coming very gently.
Of the 4 kinds of snakes in the Sahara, the Egyptian cobra is one of the most venomous. This one has been brought here from nearby for me to show you how to stay safe.
The first thing you've got to do is just keep absolutely still.
This one's around 4 foot long, and if you didn't stay still, this is what would happen.
It can strike up to half its body length in under a second. There you go, see that hood coming right out? And these guys move so fast, they kill almost 100 people a year in Africa. There you go, see him strike that?
Always back off slowly, and never corner a cobra, but give it room to make a getaway.
That's why I want to give this guy a really good berth now, and leave him alone. Come across this in the night though, and it could be all over for someone.
But it's the merciless heat out here that is always a major killer. And the Sahara still has plenty to throw at you in your struggle to stay alive.
Yeah, the more you fight the thing, the more it's gonna pull you in.
I'm in the Sahara Desert in North Africa. The heat's a killer. There's hardly anything to eat, and there's barely a drop of water to help you stay alive. And right now, I'm searching for shade. Any shade.
See that little tree over there? We've got to go there. This heat is just killing. We've got to find shade. This shade really is a lifesaver. That sun is so strong. So strong. Already feel it's cooler. Much cooler. It's weird, just as one tree growing, in the middle of this desert of just dunes and dunes. I just don't know how this thing even survives.
This tamarisk tree is perfectly adapted to the desert. Its roots burrow down as deep as 50 feet, way too far to be able to dig for water. But at least the leaves provide life-saving shade.
One thing I can do to cool myself down even more is just dig down into the sand and make like a trench to lie in. And actually, if you just dig down just literally half a foot, it can be up to 60 degrees cooler. So it's worth a little bit of effort just to try and get down. Let's get myself something to dig with. Suddenly there's a real difference in the temperature of the sand. You know, this stuff is roasting. This is cooler, but this is significantly cooler. Get down a bit more so I'm actually getting it. Heaven. Whew.
Avoid moving in the hottest part of the day, a few hours either side of noon. If you travel only at dawn and dusk, you'll probably survive for a day longer, even if you didn't have water. What water there is often out of your reach, deep underground. But sometimes tiny desert springs bubble to the surface. But don't be fooled, this could be lethal quicksand. It's been known to swallow people and vehicles whole. We've set this up so I can show you how to get out of it alive.
And what's nasty about this stuff is the more you fight it, the more it like pulls you in. And look, you suddenly realise it's not just this crust of sand that you thought, but actually it's all of that clay and water. And each time you pull it, try and pull your leg up, the suction just pulls it back in. That's why these things are so dangerous. And the reason these can actually kill people is not because they swallow you, it's because they just don't let you out of it. And the killer is that, the sun. Okay, I want to be trying to get out of this place now.
Quicksand is twice as dense as your body, so in theory it should be impossible to drown. But if you panic, you just get sucked in further and you won't have a hope of getting out.
That's really tempting just to reach out and grab a hand. But actually, in many ways, that's the last thing you want to do. It's the danger is you then pull somebody else into the same situation you're in.
Or you could dislocate your shoulder, but getting out of here is a battle. Only last year, 2 young teenagers were out looking for food on the bottom of a muddy lake, and both died in quicksand.
So the way to get out of this is to try and pull your legs up towards the surface. But really the number one rule is keep calm, don't fight it. You know, the more you fight this thing, the more it's gonna pull you in. So just try and control your breathing and try and maneuver your chest onto the surface. Try and get a leg out. And then just monkey crawl your way out. God, feels like I've got lead boots on. First thing you've got to do is get these muddy clothes off. If you try walking far like this, you're just going to get massive rubbing all the way under your armpits and inside your legs, and you'll be rubbed red raw in half an hour. You want to strip off and try and get as much of the grit off you as you can.
If you don't, the grit in your armpits and groin will make your skin erupt into horrible infections and boils. And if sand clogs up your sweat glands, you could end up with painful prickly heat rash, which is unbearably itchy. Never give yourself any more trouble than you need. Once you've got most of the grit out, quickly get your clothes back on so the sun doesn't sear your flesh. To stay alive in the desert, you can cover more ground if you travel at night. But there are hidden dangers.
This place is ideal for scorpions and for snakes.
I'm in the Sahara Desert in North Africa, in one of the most extreme environments on Earth. I've crossed vast sand dunes which could be 10 times the height of the Statue of Liberty. Now I'm in the rocky desert known as Hamada. It's mile after mile of desolation spanning a fifth of the Sahara, and it's a playground of deadly creatures. I'm going to show you how to stay alive.
You get quite a lot of these acacia trees dotted throughout the Sahara, and I can tell it's acacia just by, if you look at the branch here. Get these very thorny branches, and this is really classic African tree. But what I want from this tree is the gum on it. If I just break this off, this acacia gum, and they use this actually as a base in like syrups and in candies and in chewing gum. But what I can do is just pop it in my mouth, and it'll give me something just to suck and get the saliva going. My mouth is dry.
The acacias are a good indicator that you're closer to the foothills of the Atlas Mountains. And they're your only way out of here, if you can make it that far.
Now the heat of the day is dying. This is a much better time for you to be moving through the desert. And all of this area here is called Hamada, which means it's desert littered with these like fist-sized, tennis ball sized rocks. But the danger of moving through here at this time of day is that this place is ideal hiding for scorpions and for snakes.
If you can conquer your fears of what might be lurking out there, walking at night more than doubles your chances of survival in any desert. But you'll feel more isolated than ever in the silence of the dark.
The good thing about moving at night time is that at least it's going to keep you warm. And on the whole, the pros of moving at night outweigh the cons, I reckon. You know, yes, there are going to be more snakes, especially in this sort of Hamada area, but at least you don't get that scorching heat of the day.
Walk with a heavy footfall, so the vibrations let any snakes know that you're around. Hopefully they'll get out of your way.
The best way of navigating at night in the desert is just to use the stars. And in the northern hemisphere, the most reliable one to use is the North Star. But the way to find the North Star is to use the Big Dipper or the plough. And what you do, you take the start of it, follow the handle round, down to the bottom, and then you take the last two, and the distance between the last two, you multiply it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Points directly at the North Star. There's a running race that goes through the Sahara called the Marathon des Sables. It's one of the toughest foot races on Earth. And there's the story of one guy who got lost in a sandstorm, and he was out on his own for 9 days, and he stayed alive by drinking bat's blood. But eventually, in desperation, he tried to end his life by slitting his wrists, but he was so dehydrated, his blood was so congealed, it wouldn't even run out of him. And he was eventually rescued by desert nomads, and it was them that saved his life.
Night temperatures drop to freezing, so if you need shelter and warmth, do something about it before it's too cold or too dark.
What you can use is just what nature's provided. All of these rocks, and all of these have been baked boiling hot by the sun during the day. They're really good insulators, and they're going to hold their heat well. So you just need to look for a good area to build a bit of a rock wall around you. Try and move some of these.
Ideally, you should do this in daylight, so you can see any scorpions which love this type of terrain.
And just as an emergency form of shelter, you know, the Bourbons will use this as well. Just a way of keeping them warm through the night if they're caught out.
The black rocks of the Hamada get hotter than the sand during the day, and they retain their heat. Nature's own radiator, and perfect if you need to rest.
Okay, well, it's pretty basic, but it should do. And if I wiggle my way into this, carefully without dislodging everything, I can actually already feel the warmth off that, and I'm sheltered from the wind behind me. If I nuzzle down into that, there's heat radiating off all of these rocks, and it probably wouldn't be the best night you'd ever spend, but it could well save your life if you're caught out on this Hamada. Okay, I'm gonna keep walking. We'll leave that, you never know, somebody one day might use it.
Keep your wits about you, and you can cover more ground at night than in day, possibly around 20 miles. But there's more trouble to come. Some of the desert's most poisonous plants.
These are deadly.
I'm in the Sahara in North Africa, showing how to survive in this extreme desert environment. If you are lost in this part of the Sahara, your only way out is to head for the Atlas Mountains. But it's miles and miles of deadly terrain to reach them. Somehow, you've got to stay alive. Virtually nothing grows in the desert, and what little there is isn't always what it might seem. However tired you are, however hungry you are, unless you know what you're doing, you're putting your life on the line.
If you're moving through the desert and suddenly come across these sort of bushes, you might think, great, you know, food, looks like manna from heaven, but you'd be wrong. These are deadly, and what they're called is calotropis, and you can tell that from these big leaves and these like fruit that look like avocados. But look, if I break this, you get this milky sap, and you do not want to get that on yourself. If you get that in your eye, it will blind you. Try and eat any of this, you'll probably be sick for days. And you know, to give you an idea of how potent this is, the Berbers will use the sap from this to cure warts. That's how strong this stuff is.
Even camels, the ultimate desert survival machines, can't take these. One bite of a calotropis plant and they've been known to stagger around in circles for hours. To stay alive out here means getting water. Dried up riverbeds are rare, but they could be the answer to your prayers.
What I've been looking for as I've been moving through this gully are just areas of telltale signs of water. You know, things like the vegetation around here, any greenery that needs water for life. But also I've been looking for areas where the river at one point would run in, but then struggle to run out of. And you can see here, if you look, at one point the river would have flowed along, and then there's this like dip, and then it begins to go up here. So what would have happened, a pool of water would collect here, and as it's dried, it would soak into all of this. You can actually see the colour of the sand here. It's much darker than around here. So I reckon if I dig down into this, I might well find water.
The best place to dig is sandy soil on an outside bend. Rain soaks in very quickly, but deeper down you might find water.
Look, see, you've already signs just a few inches under it. Look at the colour difference. There's definitely moisture down here. I'm really in a desert this dry. Even to find this sort of stuff, cool, pretty moist sand, is a real result. But how am I going to get the water? Let's keep digging, see what happens. Try to think of a plan. Maybe just use a t-shirt. And maybe wrap that up. And then just start to wring it. And any moisture in this will get forced to the bottom and then hopefully out. Not very much, but I'm definitely getting enough just to wet my lips, wet my mouth. Well, better than nothing. Okay, let's keep moving on. All of these foothills here at the southernmost tip of the Anti-Atlas, which is a giant volcanic range that extends out from the Atlas Mountains. But from here, there doesn't look like any obvious route through them.
But there are clues that now you may not be far from help.
Don't know if you can see that, but somebody's definitely carved, maybe, looks like maybe a gazelle. And these are probably old Berber drawings. And this is what these guys would do. They carve into the rock the images of the animals they were hunting. But what I just find amazing is that these drawings have survived for that long against such powerful forces of nature out here.
All this area is hunting ground for the Berbers, nomads who have lived in the Sahara for thousands of years and are masters of desert survival. Your chances of getting rescued are now much higher. Next time in a special episode in the Sahara, I meet the Berbers, the desert's ultimate survival specialists. Sample a Berber delicacy.
Never eaten raw goat's testicles before.
Learn how to deal with a deadly enemy.
That can kill you.
Cross the lethal toxic salt pans in the blistering heat.
This place is just relentless.
And discover some of the most stomach-churning Berber survival techniques as I take on my biggest survival challenge yet to show you how to stay alive in the Sahara.